Today we talk about bacteria. Welcome friends to a new episode of Feed the Beast Ultimate Reloaded. What are we working on today? Well, last episode we worked on alveary production. Wanted to show that off, and we have alvearies being made more and more every day, and eventually we'll start pumping these out and getting our bees in here, which is going to be really great. I'm excited. What do we want to work on today? Well, today we're going to be looking at the next thing in the wonderful link of stuff that we've worked on, and that is bacteria. Bacteria growth. How do we make bacteria? Well, I've got a full system going and we're going to talk all about it. So let's get started because it's a lot to unpack. All right, we've got 4 tanks. We have a growth medium tank and we have a bacteria tank. And then we have 2 other bacterias. We have a polymerizing bacteria and crap. All right, hopefully did that fix? Okay, it did. This particular tank has not very much stuff in it. So we have to put this back in, and there we go. This also has bacteria vector. So how do we make all the bacterias? Well, one, you're going to need power. Pretty easy. Very nice to do. And the first thing that you need is you're going to need to make yourself some incubators. And for this entire process, you're going to need 4 of them. Okay? Similar to our setup that used to be down here for the bees, you have to make yourself growth medium. And the first step is to get yourself an incubator, which is powered. And from the incubator, you have to supply it with water. All right. And we have a tank with water that supplies the incubator with water. And then you can make yourself growth medium. Now, this stuff's not super hard to make. It's bone meal and sugar. Now, we've got sugar being made readily with our sugar bees, and we have bone meal being made with our skeleton farm. Or, well, it's down, but we have plenty. So it's pretty much shape crafting. You make as much as you can and you put it in here. Now, if you take your growth medium and put it in an incubator with water, small period of time, it will produce growth medium, liquid growth medium. Perfect. So you take that growth medium, and what I've been doing is I have a tank. Each one of these tanks has a drain on it, and from the drain I have it going to an ender tank, which I've given special codes for it to be able to be transported anywhere. That's how I'm solving my fluid transportation, is with ender tanks. Now you're going to need yourself another incubator. This incubator is going to put in growth medium. I don't have it in there now, but let's turn it on, and there we go. We're going to fill it up. Perfect. Now, if you use growth medium and you put growth medium in an incubator with wheat, which I have this full, it's pumping in. If it's powered, it will then create bacteria. Beautiful. Easy day. So really what it's doing is you're incubating with growth medium, and you're having it incubate within this growth medium so you can take the wheat and it will turn it into bacteria. Why do we need all this stuff? Well, if we want to get to the next step, one of the next steps is to... Oh, why is that missing? That's weird. Let's fill that in with the dirt. 1 dirt, do this, and we'll plug you in there. Perfect. And then we can put these in here too, since the chestnuts are not needed. Bacteria is a huge component of being able to turn your bees into DNA. It's also used in a bunch of other things as well, but the main thing that you have is you can turn if you get sugar, you can take your bee DNA and it'll turn this into bee DNA, which is what you need, or enzymes. You can take the bacteria with sugar and incubate that, which will then make the enzymes. You can then take the enzymes and plug those into a gene pool, and you can use ethanol to gene pool the bees into liquid DNA. We've talked about that before. We'll talk about it in greater detail in an upcoming episode, but really that's the main reason for needing bacteria. Bacteria is used in all of these things. So whenever you're doing anything with DNA, you need bacteria. Yep, pretty simple. All right, so this is going to run through its course, and what it's doing is creating all this bacteria. Now, what can you do with all the bacteria? Well, we have another step, bacteria. Look at that. We can feed another incubator, 2 different incubators. Now, to make the polymerizing bacteria, that's a hard word to say, man. Damn. You can use an incubator full of bone meal to make polymerizing bacteria. Now, this is obviously a very long process. You can see you go growth medium, you have to make the growth medium, you have to turn it into liquid growth medium. You can then incubate that into bacteria. You can then incubate that into polymerizing bacteria and bacteria vector. Now, the catalyst agent for making polymerizing bacteria is the bone meal. And then the agent needed for this, for the vector, bacteria vector, is for using blaze powder. So really, it's a similar setup as to over there. You can turn these on. So let's turn these on so you guys can see it in operation. Going to take those. It's going to take the bacteria. It's going to incubate the bone meal, and it's going to turn it into the polymerizing bacteria. Now, if we do the same thing with the blaze powder, we're going to incubate the blaze powder with some bacteria, and it's going to use that energy, and it's going to take and make ourselves some bacteria vector. And as you can see, it's a slow process. We don't get a lot from it, but the little bit that we're doing is really kind of going into this huge process. There's a ton to do. And this is the same thing down here. I put other ender tanks down here so that we could transport this stuff. Why do we need all of this? Why are you making all these liquids? Why are you making all these different types of bacteria? Well, all of these different types of bacteria, this one and the polymerizing bacteria and the bacteria vector, they're all made for using and doing the next thing that we're going to be working towards is the bee DNA. We're going to use the bee DNA, and we're going to start taking some time to turn all of this stuff in and start using our bees to our advantage and getting some of the really good traits so we can start breeding our bees up and taking some of the traits out of them and then injecting those traits into other bees to make our bees a better quality bee. So if we take a look, do I have a bee in here? I don't. Let's go outside for a second. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but let's take a sleep first. All right, so if we take our bees, or a bee, we'll take this common queen right here, and we analyze it. You can see it has all these different traits. We have lifespan, production, pollination, flower type, fertility, territory, and effect. So, and then there's also these other things: diurnal, nocturnal, tolerant flyer, and cave dwelling. Now, this bee has spent 598 generations in captivity. Excuse me. What that means is that this is run through 598 cycles in an apiary. One of these. Perfect, right? Very cool. But why do we want to use all that bacteria? Well, all that bacteria is going to be used for pulling some of these traits out of the bee. So we can pull the traits out like slower and fast and all these different traits like lifespan and pollination, and then these other secondary traits here of their climate and tolerance, these ones, there's a few that are very important. One, all of these are very important depending on what you want to do with your bees. You're going to want really long lifespans for bees that are going to be producing things for you. You just want them to live so they can produce. You also want the production to be up as high as you can. Excuse me. Obviously, the better this is, the more they produce, the more items you get. Great. Flowers. We want to breed out any different type of flower type so they only really work with flowers. So, for instance, some things require you to be next to a lily pad or in the nether, and that's dealing with some of the climate types. And you can change all of these things and make these traits so they all work in the overworld like this. The other thing that you can do is when you breed them up and you get them so they work nocturnally, you no longer need lighting, which I don't plan on putting lighting in any of those alveoles. I want them to be as pure as possible. And we can also get rid of the rain shield, which means that they're tolerant flyers. So we want to get some of these traits and be able to take them out of these bees and put them in any bee that we decide to breed up. So that way we can essentially take all of the best traits of all of the bees and put them in any bee that we want. That's the whole idea for going through the whole bee genetics system. So that way, really what we can do is, since all of these bees are oily bees, I don't know exactly what all the traits are that these have, but actually, you know what? Let's go take a look. We've got some down here. So let's do this. Let's take an oily bee. Let's see what kind of traits this guy has. So as you can see, it has a normal lifespan, which is probably the best one we have at this time. The production is slower, but we'd like to get that improved. The pollination is slow as well. We'd like to get that improved. The fertility is really not awesome. You really only get 2 yield, which is not super good. And then the effect is none, which is great. They also don't work nocturnally. They don't tolerate the rain, and they need to have open sky above them. So if we can get all of these in here, these bees will work in those alvearies without any other factors. You know, you don't need any of these special alveary blocks, and you can just get them to run in their normal, then they'll run 24/7, which is really great. So that's really what we want. We're going to put that bee away because it's now taken care of. So in order to do all of that, you need bacteria. You take liquid growth medium, you turn it into bacteria. You take the bacteria, you turn it into polymerizing bacteria and bacteria vector. Did I turn these off? Yeah, let's just turn them off. So those will finish doing their thing. We'll let it finish one stack. I don't have a lot of bacteria right now, so I'm trying to build up a supply. So let's take this off. We're going to turn you off as well. We'll just let it run through a full stack and call it a day. All right, so that's good. And that one is no longer making bacteria, but that's fine. Okay, so the whole reason for all of that stuff is so that you can take it and put it in some of these machines. We've got our bacteria vector there, we've got our liquid DNA there, and we've got our polymerizing bacteria there. We also have this guy creating enzymes, and enzymes are needed for creating bee DNA, which are made from bacteria and sugar. And I think, yes, you use enzymes to isolate things too, so you can start isolating some of these traits. But oh, this requires ethanol, so I think what I might do is actually move. There we go. This is perfect. We can do this and this. We only need one, so I actually kind of set this up really nicely. Perfect. We'll put that there, and then we'll do this and do that. And did it work? No. Choop. No, it did. There we go. So now the gene pool and the isolator have that. We will talk about all these other machines in an upcoming episode for sure. But yeah, there we go, guys. that's how you create bacteria, and you're going to need a lot of it, a ton. So I figured we get onto production before we got into the bee genetics, since we're going to need a lot of this stuff, and if we're not going through it, it's just going to take a long time. So all in an effort to get us moving in the right direction. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share on your favorite social media. I'll catch you guys in the upcoming episode.